They make the trek out to Burning Man for a week and a day. After a lot of work, oh, there's a lot of play. Party, 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 drama, 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 bitch, bitch, bitch. Year after year, they come back to scratch that itch. They all say their lives have been changed. After many years, lives have been rearranged. That change is what this show is all about. You'll see the impact of Burning Man up and out. So sit back, relax, and cancel all your plans. These are the stories about the shadow of the man.
Hello, this is Andy, and welcome to the Shadow of the Man Show. Blimey, that Andy? Today our guest is Yoms, all the way from the UK. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, this is a little bit of a blind date for both me and you. So, our friend, mutual friends, Nurse and Jenny K, have kind of put us together, but they suggested you, and welcome to my show. So, to begin with, I just want to get a sense of like what your Burning Man experience is. So, like, what was your first year? What led you to Burning Man?
My first year was 98. What led me to Burning Man was, I guess, started a couple of years before.
Okay.
And at that point, I worked at the BBC and I just finished a night shift or a long day shift.
Okay.
And I got home late on a Sunday night, put the television on, and there was this weird stuff going off. It just looked so bizarre. You had this bus that was full of people and was decorated in a rather bizarre way, tearing through what looked like initially a beach, but no, this was a desert. And lots of bright lights and lots of insanity. And I think they were broadcasting from the van at the time. And I switched to the radio off and I went to bed. And I lay in bed for about 5, 10 minutes and I just jumped up. And because initially I just, on watching the stuff, I thought, what a bunch of weirdos, what a bunch of losers, a bunch of freaks. I went to bed. And then I got up and I grabbed a pen and a piece of paper and kept my fingers crossed that whatever it was I had seen previously was still on television. And I rushed back into the living room and I sat there till the credits came up. And it said Burning Man. And at that point, I worked out that I was being a bit presumptuous. This was my tribe. This is the tribe I've been looking for all my life.
You got that
Um,
just from this one little video you're watching, or
yeah, one for a television show. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I just realized I was being judgmental. I was being, a lot of the things that had been drilled into me at boarding school and my parents and society. I just realized that had given me my first impression, my first reaction. And on lying in bed, trying to sleep, it played on my mind to a point that I realized these are my people. Why was I running from them? So that's how I first heard about this thing in the desert called Burning Man.
Wow. That's a kind of love at first sight. I mean, that's pretty strong.
Almost, I guess if the first part of it is I don't like you, I think you're horrible, stuff like that. Yeah, I turn around and say, "Oh my God, she's the one."
I've often heard people say that about me.
You're not
So,
so bad, I
well, we only just met. But you know, I mean, so that you were living in England, you said you're working with the BBC, you saw the credits, you saw Burning Man. Like, how did you connect to it? Like, did you just like research it, buy a ticket, just travel out to Nevada by yourself, or did you go with anybody?
No, I, I took the long route. It took me about almost about 2 years. Um, I'd never been to Burning Man. I mean, I had never been to America at that point. And I did a lot of research. I was flabbergasted by the fact that this was a possibly one of the first communities that had that would spend 51 weeks of the year engaging, collaborating, concepting, interacting online before any other event did at the time. It's about 97, 98.
Yeah, like late 90s. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They were the first. Birmingham was the first. I learned about bulletin boards and online communities and little gatherings that were mainly happening in America at the time. So I did my research into that and I delved deeper. And the further I delved, the more I understood about this crazy sort of thing. So I put a proposal together and I approached my news editor at the time and I said, look, this is one of the festivals, the sort of festival you never heard of. This whole internet thing that everyone's yelling about, these guys use it to organize, to mobilize, to create, to concept, and to deliver. And there's a certain amount of trust that you never find in any other event in the world where you're going into the desert and know that the person that you've been interacting with for the 51 weeks is going to turn up with what they said they were going to turn up with. So you're not just going to be left high and dry in the desert. You know, these are people that you trust implicitly. You know, you've all collaborated, you've given money to people for something that you don't know whether they'll ever get made, people you never met before. And then look at what they create for that 1 week. And my editor said, okay, that sounds really, really good. Um, we're not going to send a camera crew out.
What?
My heart sank. Said, but we're going to send you on a course to operate a camera. We're not going to give you any equipment from the pool of equipment we have here. You are going to go out and hire your own equipment, and then we're going to pay your costs, and you can go and document this thing. Um, and that's how I found my way out to the desert.
So you talk to them like, oh, there's this crazy thing out in the desert. I want to go, and they're like, okay, fine, we'll do it in the shoestring budget, but only you can go.
Yeah, that's it. But then on top of that, I was able to find three other people, two I'd never met before, who were interested in this. And the story I sold was we'd taken someone, okay, yes, I've never been to America, I've never been to Burning Man, but we're going to take these two people, a young art student and a photographer, and I'm going to document them and their whole journey into the desert for a piece on the BBC. And they said, yeah, that sounds good. So it's not me they're looking at, it's them. I said, yeah. I said, perfect. Um, so rallied the troops. Neither of us had ever been to America. We were all just out there, flailing in the wind. I think maybe one of them probably had as a photographer, but there was so much more to it than just getting out to the desert. There was this whole dynamic of people who hired this motorhome and never actually even as much as spent an evening together.
So you weren't
Yeah,
thinking this
we
is like
went.
a Hunter S. Thompson-esque, like, going out to Nevada, some like debaucherous thing. I mean, I'm not sure if that's what your bosses thought, but I mean,
Well,
I,
the bosses didn't, but the team I traveled with did. And you're probably the first person who's referenced Hunter S
really.
because there was a big element of that. in the whole thing. There were journals, there was my filming, um, lots of talk, lots of other stuff that you would associate with Hunter S. And his escapades.
This is what 2000 or so?
No, this is 98.
Oh, you first went in 98. So you first heard about it in what, 96 or something? Because you said it was like about a two
Yeah,
year.
96, 96, 97. Yeah.
Ah,
It took a
okay.
while to convince my editor.
So then what happened after you came back? And did you file your story and how was
Yeah,
it
yeah, filed the
received?
story, got shown on the Beeb. It was, in fact, it was the first time uh that a story of that kind had been shown. And from what I gather, it was the report of the feature was a beautiful depiction of what the desert was, what the event was at the time, and one that Larry Harvey thought really hit it on the head.
Hmm. Wow. And so I take it that wasn't your last time going. I mean, how many times have you been since?
I think I've been about 21 times.
Wow. And have you gotten involved or like what is your Burning Man experience been? Have you
Well, quite deep. And within about a year, I had joined the media team of Burning Man, and I think I was with them for about 18 years.
Oh, Media
I
Mecca.
also ran, yeah, Media Mecca. I also have, I guess I could say have or had, depends on how you look at it, a show on BMIR. And I've launched one or two camps on the playa. And then I've been involved in maybe one or two art projects.
Wow. And when was the last year you went?
About 3 years ago, 2, 3 years ago.
Ah, okay. So you did post COVID or was
I
19
did post COVID. I think I did post COVID.
like
Yes, I
22?
did. Yes, I did.
The hot year or the wet year?
Yeah, the hot year was my last year.
Ah, okay. Yeah, this year was actually my first year back after what, 13 years or so. I took a nice gap.
Uh-huh.
Took some time to raise my son. But
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I tell people the player will always be there.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. So what about now? Like, do you think you're gonna go back again? Or
Yes,
maybe
I
this
most definitely am. Um, I've already started planning. I bought a shift pod.
ah.
The previous years I've gone. My journey's been quite bizarre. I had about 5 years of an RV. Then I moved into tent, thinking that okay, all my friends who kept on teasing me that I was doing playa light. I thought, yes, I'll be in a tent with them. And the weather, the playa flattened my tent year after year. Then I bought an Airstream, and that gave me the security and the comfort that I really, really loved. But then the playa and the conditions tried killing my Airstream. So I put the Airstream into having it restored. Then I bought a motorhome, a janky motorhome that I bought off a friend. That did beautifully well up to a point where I realized it needed a lot more attention. So I gave that to another burn. I gave it away. Then I've taken my break, and this year I am going to go back and I'm going back into a tent or more or less a shift pod. There was a sale earlier on, and I decided to buy one. And I've started planning buying bits through the year as opposed to the big expense at the end.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. But the shift pod, I mean, that's the king of tents there. I mean, they're pretty
It
expensive,
is,
but
I hope
they're
so, because I don't camp light.
no, I mean those are tents you can actually put an air conditioner in, right?
Yes, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got one of the minis because it's just me. So
yeah,
yeah, but it'll be fine.
yeah. I've actually always only been in a tent. Sometimes it's been a very tiny two-person tent with like me and my brother who's snoring. That's why it kind of gets to me now. Like after 13 years, I'm hearing like, oh, people put air conditioners like in tents. I'm like
Yeah,
really?
well, the technology evolved to a point, and I say evolved not just in the ability and the capacity of these things, but the durability and the fact that they're a bit more flexible and offer you a bit more ways of integrating them into your setup. It's that bit I like.
Yeah, yeah. It's also really good. Like if your camp where you're set up, if you have like extra shade on top of that, like also flat top like shade
Yes,
structures.
you have to have a secondary shade, and I believe the hot year was the year where secondary shade became irrelevant because the secondary shade seemed as if you actually had no shade.
Oh,
It was
really?
so friggin' hot, but people were running around like headless chicken, uncertain as to what to do next because there was nowhere to turn. Your secondary
Wow.
shade was baking you.
Wow. So if you go back, are you thinking about going back this year, 2025?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Are you gonna be part of Media Mecca or you'll be
No,
camping by?
I stepped away from Mecca when I kind of worked out that my what I had to offer was no longer relevant and required, and I've created a an offshoot of my main Burning Man interest in the outside world, which I decided to pursue. And I think to a certain degree that may have gone against the grain of what was deemed acceptable
Is that the We Are
by
From
organization.
Dust?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I was just starting to like look at that a little bit. So what is that? Or are you still doing that?
We are just about to fold. We Are From Dust came about in 2015 when I went to the Venice Biennale and I looked at all the art there and it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Every single nation rocks up with what they believe to be the best artistic representation of or manifestation of their culture, of their country. And I was wandering around and I looked at some of this stuff. I said, Christ Almighty, you should see my city. My city doesn't deal in countries and nationalities and stuff. We deal as a community. We bring our best to the table every year, not every 2 years. Um, and then I saw an exhibit by a guy called Ibrahim Mahama. He's a Ghanaian artist. And he covered this almost, I say, 300 meter long corridor in burlap sacks, Hessian sacks. And that represented the cocoa that had been, you know, transported out of Africa to harking back to slave trade to everything. It was just amazing. And I just said, you know what? We have to find a way of sharing the beauty and the magnificence that we have in the desert. We have to find a way of sharing it with people who don't want to make that trip into the desert, who can't afford the cost of the time and the discomfort. We have to find a way of taking that thing that's breaking so many of our brains and inspired so many different things. We've got to take that into the world and put it in places that have never seen that sort of stuff, not in museums, not in town centers, but in places that will encourage them to explore and investigate new areas in their community. Um, so we created We Are From Dust, and it was a tumultuous start. We decided we were going to take it to the Biennale. A fellow burner loved, not going to mention names, loved what we were trying to do, and gave us a sizable amount of money, which we went and we hired an island in the Venice Lagoon where we were going to showcase a whole bunch of art.
Wow.
We paid an architect to come up with the plans. We engaged someone to deal with, because when you're dealing with Venice, you're dealing with so many other institutions. We had to pay someone to engage with the mayor's office, the heritage office, the waterways office, the cultural office, the Biennale itself, all of those things that we spent a year planning this, and
Wow.
I was traveling to Venice regularly. We got a whole bunch of artists together to try doing this. Um, we got turned down for various reasons. Can't go into detail about why or how, but it set me back a lot. And
Are these like all Burning Man
the
artists?
organization
Like,
wasn't supportive.
are these all Burning Man artists? Like people who've like brought art
Yeah,
out
these
to
are
the
Burning Man
playa?
artists.
Yeah.
Yeah. They came together and they were, I mean, they're super generous of them to trust me to try doing this. Um, we kind of hoped we get the nod from the organization, but it didn't quite happen. It was, I guess I was being presumptuous to point to think that the organization would be involved in that. And for me personally, I kind of felt Burning Man's main calling card was art. You could have photographs from gigs all around the world. Oh, well, look at that photograph. They're so happy. Oh my God, look at those costumes. Oh my God. Oh, wow, what an amazing environment. And then, what the hell is that? Well, that's a piece of art. What? That big? Yeah. You can climb it? Yeah. That was for me, Burning Man. And I kind
It's
of felt
interactive.
that Burning Man's main calling card was art, and we wanted to take that calling card out into the world, which was something the organization wasn't doing.
Well, the Venice Biennale too. I mean, it's probably one of the top arts festival or showcases in the world. I'm sure for Burning Man.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's I'm sure that's probably something they'd never quite ever thought of. Like, why we're gonna go to the Biennale? Like,
Well, I mean, the other part, which I think irked a lot of people, was the fact that you have to pay to get in the Biennale. We hired an island. We had we'd engaged with the local um, transport so that we could bring people to our island, and it was going to be free. And the Biennale closed at about 4, 5 o'clock in the evening, and we were going to rock up till midnight. You know,
yeah, yeah.
so, so I think, and when we were turned down, we had the option of doing it on our own, and I just said it's going to be like a whole bunch of kids who have not been allowed into a party, and then they set up outside with a boombox and packs of beer and said, "Fuck you lot, we're gonna do our own thing." And I just thought that's not the image I want of what this project represents. So we bowed. Um, and then while I was trying to fundraise for Venice, I bumped into a dear friend and someone who's just one of the most generous people in the world. His name is Rob Fife. And Rob, at that point, was buying a chunk of land in just outside San Francisco. It's at that point I couldn't quite I couldn't quite get my head around what it was, you know.
Okay.
We met at the autumnal gathering, and he said, "Hey, yeah, I heard about what you're doing. Look, I've got this piece of land, you know, that we're buying." I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "So this Venice thing, you know, when you're done, you should come out and hang with us." And yeah, yeah, yeah. Rob bought San Pablo Harbor, a huge chunk of land outside San Francisco. Amazing place. And over time, I can remember the following year, I went back to the playa and we ran into him and he said, "Yeah, Yoms, still got that land. We've now done the deal." And I said, "Well, Venice didn't happen." He said, "Yeah." I said, "But my place is available."
Mm,
And we formed a partnership there that we would provide art. And he was going to support us. And as I said, super friggin' generous.
hmm.
Um, and over time, we've hosted possibly one of the few free exhibitions of Burning Man art in that part of the world where the art has transformed a place that was a no-go area, even for the police.
Really?
Yeah, it's transformed. I mean, we had a dream, we had a shared vision. Basically, you have a place that no one wanted to go near. And now, I mean, I can remember having a phone call from Rob on a Sunday. It was late, about 8, 9 p.m. here, around midday in California. And he phoned and said, "Yoms, there is a 1 to 2 mile traffic jam of people trying to get into the harbor.
No way.
At some point, people just left their cars and walked because they had a restaurant there. You had art by Kate Rodenbush, and Michael Christian, by Paige Tashner, the Fergusons, you know, by Peter Hazel. That you just wander around, and if you couldn't get a seat in a restaurant, you could just have your own picnic and just sit. And I remember walking around this place and just bumping into people, and they're just looking at something like, "That is amazing, isn't it?" So yeah, it is. And next thing you know, you're talking about stuff that you never would have expected with someone you'd never met, a bit like you do on the playa.
Oh yeah.
And that was what We Are From Dust set out to do. We've hosted art in not just there, we've placed stuff in Salt Lake City, and we have at least a 5, 6 year, actually 6, 7 year space in Bristol in the UK, where we spent the best part of 80 to 90K bringing art over from the US,
Wow.
art that had been on the flyer, placing it there, including a year where we funded an artist to create a piece during the COVID years in the knowledge that there was a whole load of stuff the artist couldn't do herself. So she would have to hire a premises, which meant money went to the premises owner, which was a workshop, who was a burner. Money went to the fabricators, who were also burners. And we've worked out how that money trickled all the way down during the pandemic and
Huh.
kept people working.
Wow, that's incredible. So these are more like permanent installations, so these aren't just like temporary exhibitions.
They're permanent. I mean, firstly, one thing I learned, and this was from some seasoned artists like Kate Rodebush and Michael Christian. Never go into a situation like that asking for permanence. Always say it's temporary. The pieces have been there for the best part of 8, 9 years. They're still temporary. It's okay.
I mean, how
You
big
know,
are
I
these
mean,
pieces?
we these are big pieces, you know, really, really awesome kind of chunks of um, Burning Man art. You know, it's just, it, I mean, I don't know whether you ever saw, um, I mean, one of the other artists who we brought a piece over was Andrea Greenlees. Andrea did a big Perspex mausoleum
Hmm.
that's that we had over here. You have the Peter Hazel Niloticus, which is this 70-foot ceramic crocodile,
Yeah.
big enough for at least a 5'10" person to stand in its mouth. You know, it's that big, wide open. Um, Kate Rodenbush um, generously let us place um, Futures Past, which was a early Burning Man piece, which is looking at nature and technology and the cross-pollination of those two things and what it would create. These are pieces that required heavy machinery to get them in place. I mean, Niloticus. I mean, there's a video online of how this big Arctic lorry navigated the windy path. You know, it was shot by drone. How it navigated the windy path of getting it into place. Huge thing, you know. So yeah, big pieces of art, and some small. You know, it wasn't always big. Sometimes you can have the most intricate small little piece that has you staring at it, and your mind drifts into other things and hopefully some creative things or problem solving things.
So you think, are you still planning on trying to create some other spaces where you could bring some art to other places in the world?
No, we ran into difficulties with funding over after the COVID period, and I sincerely don't think things have kind of improved. On the plus side, well, on the plus side, um, being one of the first non-profit institutions or bodies to push this forward, we now have at least four or five that I know about who are trying or doing what we set out to do.
Oh.
And truth be told, I mean, I've worked with Candice Locklear and Will Chase,
Hmm.
you know, and other people in you know in the States. But running something like this from the UK is almost impossible. You know, it is almost impossible.
I'm
Um,
amazed that it's quite ambitious that you achieved what you've achieved. It's
yeah,
incredible.
but it was there to be done, and I guess put another way, it was I needed to show that it could be done. We needed to step out, and one of the things I actually have said to people about the team, you know, um, who managed this, and some people joined us, and some people kind of left, and there were there were in typical Burning Man styles, creative disagreements. Um, you know, we set out to do something very different. We set out to really change the world outside that orange fence. You know, it was achieved, um, and with no finance to keep things going, and to see other people inspired by what we had done, it was time to close shop and just bow, you know, and
Hmm.
step back. And I mean, much respect to everyone who was involved in getting this thing going, but also when you look at the team, Candice Locklear, myself, Will Chase, and the people who were part of it early on, cumulatively, we had put the at least 3 years, 4 years ago, we had put more than 100 years into helping shape Burning Man into what it is today.
Wow.
You know, you're talking about three senior mavens of the media team. When I joined, we were more or less the voice. You know, we engaged with the community, we engaged with all the press. We told the press and encouraged them to find their stories ahead of time. Find, you know, who's coming to Burning Man from your local community. Use their story and their journey as the basis of your article. So you're coming to the desert and you've made all those contacts. There were situations on the playa that involved law enforcement and heated discussions and heated situations with federal agents and stuff that the media team was involved in helping to de-escalate without anyone on the playa knowing about them. That was our job, you know, and we were the people who put We Are From Dust together. And it just seemed a little bit strange that with that sort of knowledge and that sort of trust within the organization, we weren't able to forge a permanent or a decent relationship through We Are From Dust.
Mm. And did you guys like interface with the local regional groups to work with them?
Well, yes. My local regional group was Euroburners. I was one of the founders. I even came up with the name Euroburners. I set up the Burning Man decompression, the London decompression.
Oh wow.
Uh, as a forefather of Burning Man, I helped instigate SantaCon in London. I came up with Carlotta Nelson and I on the playa in 91, came up with the idea of a festival in Europe, and I am one of two people, the founders of an event in Europe called Nowhere,
Oh
which
no,
is now in its
yeah.
20 something year. I
Really?
created and produced Nowhere with the team.
Wow. That's in Spain, right?
Yeah, that's in Spain. So yeah, I mean, I've always been involved in a lot of the local stuff until the politics got a little bit crazy, and I realized I should step back and just let that do its own thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I founded the Hawaii Regional Group in 2002 and did that for about 10 years. And then, yeah, life intrudes. My son was getting older, but now that he's like 16 and a half and starting to think about, oh, maybe I'll bring him to the playa this year.
That sounds good. I
Yeah,
was kind of wondering, that was puzzling because you said you were going to send a Zoom link, and I said 8 a.m. and you said it was 10 p.m. And I was
yeah.
kind of wondering, and I woke up about an hour or 2 hours ago and I hadn't had the Zoom link. And then my mind kind of drifted off and thinking, where is he? What's west? What's more west than California? You know, and that was I was thinking, okay, so it's not Australia because that's the other way around. It's not New Zealand, and I hadn't quite placed Hawaii. You guys had Carmen Kirk there for a while. Do you know
She's still
Carmen?
there. Yeah, yeah. She's
She's
still
still
up
here.
in
She did
Maui.
Burners Without Borders.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I was wanted to have her on the show, but she declined for her own reasons.
Well, Carmen, I think Carmen had a similar experience with the organization that I did.
Mm, mm. Well, let's see. Okay, now let's like we can move on to our next portion of this my guest background. So where does your story begin? Like what led you to Burning Man? Like well, where did it all start? Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in a place called Littlehampton, which is right by the sea, near Brighton, over here in the UK.
Okay.
And I grew up with foster parents, and then I went to Nigeria with my real parent, with my mum, where I stayed for a few years. I went to a boarding school. My boarding school was a little bit weird. I think
Yeah, what
we
was
had
that like?
it was really intense. I didn't speak the language. Um, it was a rural sort of place, but it was one of these Ivy League places, you know. I kind of feel that if something horrible would happen during the visiting days, the visiting day, with where all the parents would be, and you'd Africa and parts of Asia would have lost, you know, the top brass of their society, you know, be it ministers, world leaders, you know, the whole lot. I mean, it was one of those places, and currently some of my classmates are running institutions and countries around the world.
Wow.
And then I started a job well, after college, I get after school. Um,
Where'd you go to school?
well, I was still in Nigeria at this point.
Oh, okay.
I fell out with my dad. Um, Dad was one of these authoritarians. Never quite understood, and understood him, and truth be told, you know, if you don't grow up with your parents, and when you finally do start living with them, they have their own little gig going on, be it, you know, the ways to do things and all the rest. And because that didn't quite gel with me, I never got on with my dad and my mum. So I went out and got a job. I got a job on a local radio station, which upset my dad immensely. And I just got enough money together, packed my bag, and said, "I'm going back to London." That was it, you know. And I was in my teenage years at that point, you know.
So then you
Got
went
back to
back.
London, got back into DJing on radio. Um, did a did a degree in journalism and did a master's degree in interactive multimedia. And the interactive multimedia aspect of it um, was what led me to understand the communication channels used by the Burning Man community, which was what led me to, well, I was able to convince my editor, you know, to let me come out to the desert. Because he said, "You know this shit." I said, "Of course I know that. Look at what they're creating. They've not met each other before. They're doing all this online. This whole internet you know, interweb thing. Pretty amazing." Um, yeah. And you know what? When I came out to the desert first year, I met so many people who have shaped this planet. So many of them. It's just ridiculous. Really. The brains that were going to Burning Man in the very first year have molded it into what it is now.
Well, it's a constant evolution also. Like new brains come in and
Yes,
other ones
but then
go
the
out.
new brains are inspired by the previous lot. You know, I mean, it's one of the reasons why when I did my master's, um, I was offered a choice. You can either go down the creative route and you know eulogize and philosophize about the future, and you know you become almost like a futurist, or you could become one of the programmers. And I just said, I'm not kind of that programming thing. So yeah, and I've spent about 2 years on this master's, and I have to keep on buying these frigging books, like 500 pages long of coding and this and that. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Or I could just hang out and watch the technology come and go, see how it can be used, and actually develop concepts and ideas based on that knowledge and that foresight. I said, yeah. And that doesn't include buying any of these books. I said, yeah. I said, well, I'll take that route. You know, I didn't want to be in a situation where a lot of these smart young kids come out and rewrite the whole fucking code. And then I'm having to chase and buy books again. No, let the smart guys come along. I will do stuff that will hopefully inspire them, and we can live happily ever after.
So are you still in journalism? You still in the BBC? Or?
No, I moved on. I oh God, my career had just taken a weird. turn. I quit journalism. I went on to create reality TV formats.
Oh,
Um, this was in the early 2000s. I created a couple. One of them picked up probably one of the very prestigious awards over here in the UK. It was a year when Survivor and Big Brother had just launched, and we were all in the same category, and the show I created beat them, and I won.
wow.
Um, and then I wandered off into the wilderness for a short while because I was then asked to create a show similar to Big Brother, and I said, why would I create something that really my peers and the industry looked at and thought what I created was a lot better? You know, it was almost derivative of the stuff I'd done. I said, no, not doing that. So I wandered off for about 3 years. I came back and I wrote or co-wrote my first feature film, which
Really?
was an interactive show that broken into three parts, and it was probably one of the first films to give the public an opportunity to step into the drama and to become part of the drama. It
How
was
does
very
that work?
Burning Man to a certain degree. The first part was shot as a solid chunk. The second part had a 30% gap, and the third part had a 40% gap. And in between each episode released weekly, we did the first part with Yahoo, I think. Um, in between each part, we hosted several live events where there were cameras and the actors. And within 2 or 3 days, we'd edited those into the second part. So you would find yourself in the film. And because it was an investigation. I'll give you an example. We had a party that was publicized all over the place. People had to buy tickets, they had to register email addresses. There was a fight scene, a really horrific fight scene that we staged. Um, a day after the party, we chose about 8 people that we'd seen that were active at the gig. It was a master ball. So we phoned them up using this current technology that we're actually on now, Zoom, recorded the conversations. Okay, so Andy, you, this is Detective John Franks from the police force. I gather you went to Pleasure Principled on Friday. Yes, I did. Good. This is part of a police investigation. Um, are you near your computer right now? Yes, I am. Could you check your email? Yes. You got an email from us. Yes. And what does it show? It shows me entering. Good. That places you at a crime scene. Please tell us what you saw. So we're able to film this conversation going on, but able to use that segment within the
Ah,
drama. And that's how we did it. So people found themselves helping the police along with the investigation, but also within the drama, you could because it was released online. It launched at London Film Festival, but it was also released online. You could freeze frame, get telephone numbers, addresses, um, various things like that, phone the numbers, and depending on where the character was at that precise point, they could answer the phone. They could either the phone, if it was a Friday night, the police officer who had a drink problem could answer the phone drunk, and you could talk to him, you know. So the whole 3 week thing was built on a spreadsheet where hour by hour we knew what the characters were doing. So sometimes you would have to leave a message because within the drama, the character was asleep or he was interviewing somebody. So I did that. That did quite well.
wow.
Um, and the past 10 years, I've been I've taken that the whole concept and I got a little bit burnt with the film. People said it relied too much on technology. And the film was called Breathe, by the way. And it was about a police investigation into a series of unexplained deaths. And you can find it online.
Okay. Look that up. Yeah.
And the past 11 years, I have been publishing graphic novels, steampunk graphic novel called
Oh,
Clockwork Watch. And similar thing, because I got burnt on technology with Breathe, I decided I was going to write a retrofuturist story where there is no technology, where you've got clockwork automatons who are the most basic form of mechanics, but they become sentient. And what we've done is in between certain book launches, we have created immersive experiences where you can interact with the characters. And after those experiences, the characters report back to me, and then I write some of those into the next chapter of the book. So the public have also been involved in helping to tell that story.
wow.
And the last thing that I've done, I guess, is the bit that I'm about to do now, which is I start directing my first film, having done several, this coming Friday.
Really?
Um, yeah, and it's a film about men and mental health in this modern age. And It's called Age of Quorum, and we got a crowdfund going right now, which has raised almost half the budget. We got about 20K. We need another 19 to go.
Well, do you want to
Um,
give out the URL? Maybe if anyone listening wants to contribute?
God Almighty, if anyone wants to find the URL, it's going to be hard. Um, we if you search online for Age of Quorum, or you go onto GoFundMe, which is a crowdfunding platform. And if you type in Age of Quorum, the URL is, I mean, I'll give it to you, but it's one of these convoluted
uh,
edited um domains.
yeah.
But it's called Age of Quorum.
So
And Quorum is
how do you spell quorum? Is it Quorum?
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
It's a psychological thriller about New Year's Eve, and story of a young man's New Year's Eve that goes dramatically downhill when the night becomes an opponent in a fight he must win to survive. So basically, you've got a man out on New Year's Eve where he's not just battling people, it is night, the whole festivity for him to actually see the light of day.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm trying to remember what was the name of that movie with the guy who was just trying to get home. Hmm. I don't know. Sorry.
Oh, the only one that comes to mind is the Warriors. They were trying to get home.
Well, there's that one. No, but I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember any of the name. It was in New York City. It was like late at night. Like everything he tried to do, like he'd go to the subway, didn't have enough change.
Yeah.
Like and then like
It's
the
it's 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 one of those where the night really is pitted against you, and everywhere you turn, there's obstacles. But the other part of this for this particular story, um, is over here in the UK, people kind of strive to be amongst friends and family in a good space at the stroke of midnight. Well, what happens when all that goes sideways and every single turn you make to get back to your people, to get back to that place of comfort, basically is blocked. And that is where the night becomes an absolute arse, an absolute bitch, where there's just despair. Nothing's open. No one's open. No one's there to give you time of day. It's pitch black and you're far from home.
well, okay, I think this brings me to the last part of my show, the impact of Burning Man. It's like so that's what the whole theme of my show, the shadow of the man. It's like why? why do this all these years? Like
Uh,
what impact is it, has it
well,
had? Like what's in it for you? Like why torture yourself? Why keep going back, or why involve yourself
well,
in this community? What does it mean
we
to you?
we did this thing. I think it was started by Candace Locklear.
Uh-huh.
Um, it was a patch that said Burning Man ruined my life, which we then took to, and we've done this, and when I come back this year, there's going to be a new one. We've had Birmingham ruined my life. We've had Bunring Man ruined my life. We've had, I mean, everything. It's so this
Birmingham,
meme,
yeah.
yeah, this meme is going on. I mean, last year, if I had come, it was going to be Bunny Man ruined my life.
Don't show that to Stephen
What's been
Rasper.
in it? It's it's broken my brain. It's changed. If not for Burning Man, I think I'd still be in the newsroom, frustrated, disappointed, and more or less disillusioned. It's opened up a new way of doing things. I remember the day I turned around and I said, if you criticize us, you're being judgmental. If you say we're a bunch of freaks, you're being judgmental. The only people who can say we're freaks who are people who've been to Burning Man, who understand what we are, who we are, and calling us a freak is a celebration of us collectively. Um, it's shown me that pound for pound, in the right sort of environment, I could be as creative as the most genius mind anywhere in the world because it comes out of the people that you're with, the people who encourage you, the people who support you, the people who give you that mental bandwidth, that space for you to think. You know, it's not just art, it's the environment, it's the people that you're with. You say one thing, and I mean, there's stuff that I've come up with that are just crazy. I remember a year where we were out in, I think it was Mendocino, with a whole bunch of burners after the burn, and and we came up with this whole thing of something called the rave guard. And there was a time when there was lots of very strong MDMA out, and people used to gurn and bite their jaws and all the rest. And we were just talking. I said, God, what if we created this little product called a rave guard, which is a gum shield, like the gum shields you have in American football. Like you just, when you've done and you instead of biting, chewing your jaw, you put it in and it lights up. And people come up and say, Hey, Andy, you okay? And you smile and you got this red glow, just going, yeah, I'm on the rave guard, man. You know, shit like that, which I'm sure with the way the world has changed with Amazon and stuff, you could market that sort of thing and it would work. You'd have all these kids running around lighting their faces up with gum shields. It's like, yeah, man, he's on a rave guard. You know, just little things, even down to technology. I remember the one time I think it was a Green Man when that lunatic Elon Musk went and planted the very first Tesla, the Roadster,
Yeah.
put it without any branding and just put it in the middle of the desert. We knew that was heralding other problems further on down the line. That was fairly evident. Who's going to plonk their car in the middle as, it's not a showpiece, but it was a bold statement at that point. You know, um, I've met I've met people who've got more means than third world countries. You know, you think about the people who come to the desert, world leaders, princes, princesses. I mean, we know, that our shenanigans in the desert have been discussed by Pentagon.
Really?
You know, this went around the media team. They were discussing how can our troops survive in the desert in Afghanistan and Iraq. Well, look at these guys. They go out and they do a bloody good job of it in the desert. You know, I've sat and I've had I've had conversations with people from the Tea Party in Media Mecca. The
Really?
politicians rolled in. Yeah. Oh God. You'd be surprised. You know,
Oh, you
I
said like
I
world leaders, princes, princesses? I mean, like, does it metaphorically or like literally?
no, no, no.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you have Arab states who have people out there. You have monarchy prince and princesses from various nations, and on extremely good authority, I can tell you that the UK has been represented.
Like monarchy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I could go into detail about so much. So look, the media team were more or less in the early days, we were the guardians of the message. I mean, there was a year when Candice and I were out. I think it was Candice and I were out in the morning, and there was a beautiful maze that we were wandering around when we ran into Alanis Morissette and her boyfriend, this goth guy playing this amazing Phil Silver penny flute, and he was taking her through the maze at sunrise. When the press rock up with their cameras, we heard Alanis Morissette's here. Alanis Morissette's here. He said, "Yeah, yeah, she is." But she's just gone over in that direction. You know,
Yeah.
and we just sent him off. You know, you got the likes of Rosario Dawson, who I adore, who's out there regularly. I mean, there you'd be so surprised. I mean, my favorite still is the person who went into Bill Murray's camp.
Bill Murray, really?
The person went into Bill Murray's camp, um, and just asked for a beer, and Murray gave him a beer, opened the can, took a swig, gave it to him, and said, "No matter who you tell, they're not gonna believe you."
I like that.
You know, and we know people the people are there. I mean, I remember the year before this whole P. Diddy thing. I knew remember the year he was there. We're in his camp, drinking his vodka. You know, I know. Yeah, and various other people. It's opened my mind to the fact that it's the people you're with. They open doors, and not necessarily financial doors or social doors, but doors in your mind. I mean, why would a black guy who has more or less nothing other than to his name rock up and feel that he could create a sculpture park in the world's biggest, most prestigious art event, thousands of miles away from his home, hire an island, block book an island for 8, 9 months, pay for it, if not for the community that I am part of.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I
That's
still like
what
can't. That's quite the ambitious and audacious of Venice Spinale. But you did it. I mean, like you said, you
we
had
were.
rented an
We were
island for
more
like
than we were
yeah.
more than 70% there. We even had for once we could do it with sponsors. We had sponsors lined up. Um, um, there's a pasta company who were going to come on board, and the idea was you come to the island, you bring your mat or your whatever you want to sit on. There will be free food. You bring your own plates and all the rest, similar to we do on the playa. There will be food. At that point, we then made a reach out to Joan Baez to come out and to do stuff, and it would be just certain. And this was the twist: the people who were going to be coming for the nighttime special events would all have um, a wristband of one kind or another, who were meant to be locals. So we would invite, because the locals tend to leave Venice in the Biennale because it's just too
Yeah.
much. So we were going to have the public and invite the locals to come, sit down, listen to music, wander around art, and there's food free. And that was what we were going to create that sort of environment, the environment that we're so familiar with in the desert. You know, all you have to do is get on one of the vaporettos, one of the boats that will just take you across the canal or the lagoon and drop you off, and you can wander, just wander and enjoy. Um, I mean, look at the just jump from being a newsroom journalist into thinking you can do that. That's Burning Man.
Yeah, yeah, but also not just by yourself, like you said, like with a community of people working with you too,
Oh
right?
God, it is the community that is Burning Man for me. I've always seen Burning Man not as the organization, but the community. And times when I have more or less criticized the organization, it has been because I believe there's a disconnect between the people who are proper Burning Man and the people who organize the event. And they're two distinct things, which is why we decided to do We Are From Dust. We appeal to the community to help us do it, not the organization.
So you
The
think
organ,
is
I mean, truth be told, the organization's got its hands full with trying to organize permits and organize all that lot. Little surprised they haven't got time to take the art into the outside world. Um, well, we set out to do that, and I think we've inspired and encouraged other people to take it on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of traditionally how the Burning Man always sort of was, like they would Burning Man project would be involved with like organizing everything like Black Rock City in the desert, and like we are saying the other 51 weeks of the year was more of like the realm of like the regionals or like Black
Yeah,
Burners Without Borders or but I don't know, I guess as like custodians of the culture. I mean, the organizers. I mean, it's an interesting it's a trade-off or it's like a balancing act, that they have to play. And well,
yeah,
thank
it is a balancing act. And where do you start and where does it end? They managing a global community of crazies, freaks, weirdos, and highly intelligent misfits is a big job. It's breaking it down into regions and let each region be autonomous is a great way to do it. And you sit above that and offer guidance. That is where you can't control the chaos, man.
oh
You can't,
no, no.
and there's so much creativity and creative conflict within these respective organizations. That's the nature of the beast. That is what encourages us to kind of be with each other.
Is that your cat?
Here's my little fur guy.
Oh, hello. I did not know you had a co-guest. What's your little baby's name?
Ted. Ted is a pure white, British short hair who, like most pure whites, are deaf,
Oh,
and
really?
he deals with vibration and sound.
Ah.
He's a rescue that we. No, actually, he's not a rescue. He's a pedigree.
Really?
It's actually a pedigree that we got years ago, and he rules the house.
Well, thank you so much for the interview. This has been wonderful. You can, I don't know if you're going to go back to sleep now, or it's time for
No,
you to
God,
get up. I think I
I
might be
I
going
have
to
a
sleep.
film to shoot next week. There is no sleep. I say we're trying as much as possible to get some more money in. You
Well,
get to a
again,
point.
if
You get to a point
anybody,
where you point of no return. Everything's in motion.
yeah.
If there's anyone out there who wants to contribute or throw money at a film about men and mental health, which I think is super important to this modern age, please do donate.
So look up
Age
Age
Quorum.
of Quorum, right?
Yeah, Quorum.
Let's see. Anything else? Let's see. If you want anyone to be able to reach you, do you have like a way for people to reach you?
Yeah,
Email or
my
anything?
site is Yomster, Yomster.com. You'll actually be able to watch episodes of Breathe there. You'll be able to see the stuff I did with music because I had a drum and bass label years ago called Tone Deaf Records. There's access to stuff there. Um, and my whole creative professional life.
Is there a link to
Oh,
Age of Corum there
also,
too?
yeah, find Age of Corum and looking
Okay.
at this, let's just have a look and see whether I did put it up. Is it there?
Well, this
Yes,
episode's gonna come out in about a month or so, so you
month.
have
Good.
you have some time.
Well, you can watch the first part of my first film, which was released in 99, called Journey to the Heart of the Man. And this was Burning Man
Oh,
in its early days.
Journey.
Yeah, Journey to the Heart of the Man. It's up there. I didn't realize I put it up. You will see. Uh, I mean, the years when a man was, you know, on hay bales and you lit a man in a
Oh
fire
yeah, I
and
remember
he
that.
walked in between his legs and the whole thing went.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that. I mean, I'm smiling because it's just taken back to that first trip.
All right. Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much. This has been an awesome interview.
No, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to reminisce. And thanks for taking me back and delving into stuff that I haven't quite shared with the world as such.
Well, thank you again.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe, rate, and review it on Apple Podcasts. It just helps to get this show seen. Please tell a friend and help to spread the word. If there's enough support, we can do a lot more of these shows and publish more shows per month. If you would like to contact us about being a guest, what you think about the show, or whatever, please send an email to shadowofthemanpodcast, that's all one word, at gmail.com. You can also follow Shadow of the Man on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. The links for these pages are all available on the front page of shadowoftheman, all one word, .com. See you next month for a new episode of The Shadow of the Man.
Thank you for listening to this latest show. We have to make another one, so gotta go. Don't worry, for next month we already have one in the can. Very soon you'll be listening to a new Shadow of the Man.